We've got a great list of questions today. Too many questions to answer in this one session, but I think we'll be able to get through a good chunk of them. So looking excited to kicking it off. And we've given everybody a few minutes, so I think we could probably go ahead and get started. So just a reminder to everybody, make sure to mute your audio and video. And we've got some housekeeping slides. We'll introduce the panel, and then we will get going on the Q&A. So welcome everybody. This is the panel that we've got for you today. I'm Jenny Robertson, the Chief Technology Officer at ANNUITAS. I'll be heading up the panel today. And how about everybody on the panel introduce yourself, what you do, but also a fun fact outside of work, because I always think it's fun to hear about people outside of work as well. So for myself, I am a boy mom. I have two boys. They're both mama's boys. They are the center of my world outside of everything I do for work. I'm also a runner. So I guess looking at the slide, Brooke, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am Brooke Bartos, Director of Marketing Operations and Analytics at InvoiceCloud. I've been using Marketo since 2014, and outside of work, Halloween is my favorite holiday, and so this year I added a new addition to my decorations, which is a Halloween tree that I've been very excited about. So I've been busy decking the halls, so to speak, with my Halloween cheer.
That explains the costume too. It's one of my favorite
Absolutely.
holidays as well. I agree. My husband's birthday is on Halloween, so it's a big deal in our house.
Oh, how fun.
All right, Megan, you want to go next?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan. I am the Senior Manager of Marketing Technology and Integrations at Palo Alto Networks. My fun fact is that I really enjoy doing yoga, and I'm a yoga instructor.
Nice, great. And Heather?
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Harris. I am a Manager of Digital Customer Experience at Tyson. I've been using Marketo for about 9 years now, and this is my first year as a champ. Fun fact, I have two daughters, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so we are very busy outside of work.
All right, and Darshil?
Hey everyone, this is Darshil Shah. I am based out of India and I work as a Marketo Consultant for Deloitte Digital. Outside of work, a fun fact about me is that I love exploring cars, and in my free time I like watching and exploring cars, and yeah, I enjoy my time behind the wheel.
Great. And then some information around Marketo Engage certifications. There's 2 certifications for 2 different levels. The Adobe E555 certification is for users and marketing managers that are executing tactical Marketo programs and things of that nature. And the E558 certification is more for those administrators and power users that are in Marketo day-to-day. So 2 great opportunities to share your Marketo expertise and be able to, show that on LinkedIn and other things. And it's a great career builder, great resume builder. So more information can be found at the link below when you get the slides. And with that, we will dive into our Q&A. So we had a couple of different questions around training and certification. So we'll start with the first question, which was, where can I learn Marketo other than an online medium?
And I would say that, really hands-on experience is, I think, the most important way to learn Marketo. But there are several tutorials online that Marketo offers, and I have surfed through those, and they are fantastic. There's also the Marketo community, which you can learn a lot of hands-on tips and tricks that you may not have access to if you do not have access to Marketo. But you can learn a lot from the community as well.
Great. And any recommended practice materials for that E558 exam?
Yes, so I I recently retook the Marketo Certified Expert exam last month, and I would say a great place to start would be the study guide. As you're going through the study guide, if you feel that there are some areas that you need to brush up on, any features that you haven't used recently, I would definitely revisit those features and just make sure you're squared away on all of that. There's also um, with this year's test, I feel like there was a strong focus on Salesforce integration and the champion blog, and I can actually post these links in the chat as well for us, but gives you kind of like a heads up on all of the integration facts that you may want to familiarize yourself with. And there is also a practice test. I recommend taking that several times, and several training courses, as well as free training courses that Marketo is offering this year, which is fantastic.
Awesome. I can say too, for people who are interested in taking the exam but a little scared about it, if you are Marketo power user and in Marketo every day, you should not be scared of this test. You've got it. You can look at the study materials and take the practice test, but definitely don't be scared to give it a shot. I can say from my own experience. Okay. Well, that's a good segue. You said there's a lot of questions on the test around the Salesforce integration, and people did have some questions around that. So the first question around it, somebody typed in, was how important is the knowledge of CRM like Salesforce when we are working with Marketo and syncing the data with CRM?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think the biggest thing is, what do you want to be able to contribute to your organization, and how powerful do you want to be in leveraging the knowledge of your systems? If you are working toward being a systems admin, and you want to be able to get more out of reporting or attribution, it's very important to understand how the data flows between the systems and how your teams can leverage that information over in Salesforce. Even at a bare minimum, you should have an understanding of how the sync works. At a core basic level, knowing that leads and contacts are bidirectional, and accounts and opportunities are one way from Salesforce to Marketo in terms of what data can be changed and manipulated, is an important piece to understanding how you can leverage that information or make changes or updates. But understanding Salesforce and how things like campaigns work and campaign membership, what data can be pushed to campaign member custom fields, and how that process works, and then how that data can be leveraged in reporting, is going to make you a much stronger marketer, a stronger revenue leader within your organization, and a stronger MarTech systems admin overall. So really, the more you can get into that, the more you're going to be able to get out of it and contribute.
And then a few more questions around it. There's two that are kind of similar. One is best method to understand the Marketo and Salesforce sync, and another is that the Marketo to Salesforce is an interesting one, and I would just love to learn more.
Yeah, I
I
see a couple
can.
of links getting dropped into the chat box there, which is really great. Darshil, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take the first step and maybe you can add on to it later. So, like at least for me, when I started off with my Marketo journey 4 years back, understanding Salesforce Sync was a bit of a challenge for me. Like I started off with very fresh start of Marketo, and Salesforce and Marketo were both new to me. So I started off learning, going through the experience, the Marketo docs. I read all the docs. I got to understand the terminologies and stuff. Then I like we had a sandbox integration done with the Salesforce, so I started off with that. I experimented a lot. I got to learn about different caveats around the integrations, and then I also I shadowed one of the implementation where we integrated the Salesforce and Marketer together. Like I shadowed a senior, so that way I got to learn more caveats, more things that one needs to know about the Salesforce and Marketer integration. And till now, I find myself referring back to the product talks and um, going back to the Marketo Nation community where there are a lot of questions and which have been answered fantastically with respect to the Marketo and Salesforce integrations. So definitely check out the Marketo Nation community and the product documentation, and nothing beats the on-field experience. So if you have a sandbox implementation where it is integrated with Salesforce, I would definitely recommend you to go ahead and try out few things, see how the integration works, maybe add custom fields in Salesforce, see how it gets added to the market, or maybe play around with some permissions, add picklist value, stuff like that. So the more you do on the field, the more you get to learn. And of course, uh, there are resources available online on Marketer community and product docs, which you can always refer to. Yeah.
Great. All right. And I can add too, be very friendly with your Salesforce admin. That very much helps when you're trying to dig into
Absolutely.
the Marketo Salesforce integration. All right.
Yes, and to add on with that too, I was just going to say Salesforce has an excellent training program through Trailhead. And then you can also get a sandbox environment that way to play and test in. So it's a great way to learn is through their Trailhead process as well. If you have an SFDC admin that maybe doesn't have time to work with you, or maybe you don't have that internally and you outsource that, there's a great training path there as well.
Completely agree. Yeah, good call out. All right. Next question is, what solutions is Marketo Engage integrated with?
So Adobe has put together a fantastic page where it has list of all the product suites that have native integrations with Marketo via Launchpoint. So definitely, like I can post a link to that page in chat, and definitely check that out. So you get to know all the platforms that have native integrations. And apart from that, if you are trying to integrate any of the other platforms, then definitely you can explore the rich set of Marketo APIs through which you can build out the custom integration. And if you wanna know to not work with custom integrations, build out those, you can also check out the third-party integration partners like Zapier and Marketo that also support a lot of third-party integrations with Marketo. So definitely those are three areas that I would love to check out while integrating with Marketo. I can post the link to the partner page real quick.
The self-service flow steps will be a great new expansion to that too for teams that are starting to explore that as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Yeah.
In general, do any of you have any solutions integrated with Marketo that you want to share?
So we use Workato actually for our Marketo instance. My instance is a little bit unique in the sense that I have a single Marketo instance that is connected to 3 different instances of Salesforce and to 1 instance of Zoho. And so with that, we also have some limitations in terms of what we can do natively and what we can do custom because, Marketo can be hooked to 1 instance of Zoom at a time, or Marketo can be hooked to 1 instance, this, that, and the other thing. And so we actually use Workato to customize a lot of that configuration to be able to do something that, is very unique to our business, but give our teams a tremendous amount of flexibility. But basically with Workato, we found that if it has an API, we can probably hook it up, which is really nice.
Okay. Next question we have is geared around intent. We are in the final stages of standing up 6sense and looking forward to transforming our marketing focus to ABX. We now have lots of new intent data in Marketo. What would be more effective, incorporating that data into our existing scoring or leaving our existing scoring as is and adding a new data point as a threshold to MQL? It's a good question. And I can post that question in the chat if you guys would like to read it.
Yeah, unless anyone else wants to jump in on this one, we implemented 6sense over at our org. The way we did ours, we did retain both separate scoring models, the account score through 6sense and the person scores through Marketo. The reason for that is the overall account score doesn't really tell you who the potentially interested people are within your account. So if you do have a lot of people in the account, the person score for us helps our teams identify who actually is the person they should be reaching out to that's showing the most interest. So that way, instead of sitting and calling down a list of like, hey, this account has 30 people on it, let me start at the top, it's letting them focus that a little bit. So we do keep those separate, but we do bring some of that intent information into the scoring model, just as an added value. So we'll say something like, hey, if account intent score went up by X amount, change these person scores up a little bit so it is tied in together, but we do keep them separate, just to really try to help prioritize that outreach.
Great. All right, next one is around attribution. It says, I'm struggling with attribution again. Isn't everybody? We use Marketo and Salesforce. We are not able to show ROI because the person in Salesforce added to an opportunity is usually a new person. So the lead source and the primary campaign source are typically both blank. How can you address this? Is there a workaround anybody would recommend?
We moved our attribution out of Salesforce. So we use Caliber Mind, but Visible, Leads RX, there's a whole slew of tools. Yeah, I mean, frequent story. It's been the story of my life, and basically from everybody that I hear is, hey, we either don't have people on the opportunity with contact roles, or it's not the people that are involved in our marketing campaigns. So when we look at the campaign influence in Salesforce, there's nothing there. One of the first steps for us was to operationalize the person source value. So on creation of every single person in Marketo, a person source is set. So even for those people that don't have a value, there's still, or didn't come from a marketing campaign, for example, like in this case, there would still be something there to let us know they came from Salesforce. But then for everybody that's being created in Marketo, they're immediately assigned the acquisition program date, person source detail, all of the information that go into that. The connecting the opportunities, contact roles with the opportunities is something that we are working on right now with our Salesforce team and getting a tool to automate that process so that all of the contacts at an account are associated with an opportunity. We're not there yet. But we do pull all of that over into Caliber Mind, which is kind of like CDP, BI, attribution tool sort of rolled into one, which gives us a look at everybody at the account and considers that a part of influence at the opportunity level. So we just pulled it straight out of Salesforce and went over to there because it was easier for us to use a tool to fix it than it was to fix the human behavior of our sales teams and adding contacts to opportunities. So I don't know if anybody else has done anything, uses Visible.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to share how you're tracking attribution at your companies? Okay. We can move on to the next. We have a few questions around some, in general, people are asking about Captcha and interested in how it works, what people are doing with it. I think in general, just some general data about that. And then I have one more question that's more specific, but everyone's very curious about that topic.
Okay, I can start off with the general introduction of CAPTCHA, how it like how people used to implement it before the native integration was integrated and stuff like that. So like before all of this, let me just in a 10-second kind of thing, let me explain what CAPTCHA is for everybody. So I'm sure you would have filled out a form, you would have come across a checkbox kind of thing where you need to prove that you are not a bot. So that is something which a lot of forms and a lot of website do to ensure that they are not spoofed with a lot of bot form submissions. So for example, Google reCAPTCHA version 2 used to like they ask you to select a couple of images that had particular objects to ensure that you are a human and not bot. That was Google reCAPTCHA version 2. And the latest Google version reCAPTCHA version 3 does not actually ask you to select any of the object. It basically tracks your user activity, like how you're filling out the form, how you're making your way throughout the different fields of the forms to understand, like to come up with a score to identify if you are a bot or not. So after your form submission is done, you are being scored from 0 to 1. 0 being that like most likely you're a bot, 1 being that there's a 100% probability that that you are human. So earlier without the native integration, like we used to like had to go and implement the webhook in Marketo and come up with a custom JS that needs to be deployed on the web page in order to integrate the Google reCAPTCHA version 3. So there was a lot of custom development around it when it came to implement the reCAPTCHA version 3, or as a matter of fact any of the captcha onto Marketo forms. So with September's release, Marketo introduced a native integration with the Google reCAPTCHA version 3, where you can just type in your secret key into the admin and couple of configuration items, and you are all set with the CAPTCHA implementation. So along with that, Marketo has also added 3 attributes to the fills out form activities, so that you can identify if the form submission is actually from a bot or from a human, and you can use these 3 attributes into your smart campaigns as a constant into the fills or form triggers and filters. Maybe if somebody's scored like zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.4 or below than that, you can add them to a separate static list, and you can quarantine them before they make their way through your lead lifecycle program and stuff like that. So that you are not spoofed or your campaigns are not overwhelmed by the bot form submission. So with this native integration, I would say the process of implementing reCAPTCHA onto Marketo forms and website has become a lot easier. So yeah, definitely a great update, I would say.
Great. And how do we set up the action parameters from the Marketo side? And what is the best way to take action within Marketo to prevent bots from staying in our database once the CAPTCHA is alerted us to the suspicious activity?
I can take that one. So once you have CAPTCHA integrated with Marketo, like you put your key into admin, it does have to be enabled on a per form basis. So you're going into each individual form and turning on the functionality. From there, as was just mentioned, for the filled out form activity, there is additional like constraints you can add on that filter to detect if it was like trusted or suspicious, like the form fill. And then from there, you can use that to make different exclusions. Like if you want to add people to a list, so you can review the people that get added onto that list before removing them from your database, or just kind of taking a look at what's coming through and what's being like identified. But I would say definitely utilize the fill out form constraints for CAPTCHA.
Out of curiosity, so we haven't implemented this yet, although I can't wait until we do, but since a few of you have, are you seeing surprising results after implementing it, or is it about what you expected? Like, did you have a high amount of bot traffic you didn't know about, or just curious? Or maybe it's too soon to tell.
Yeah, for us, we were already using CAPTCHA prior to the Marketo native integration. So I feel like we weren't too surprised because we were used to kind of like seeing a good amount of traffic from bots and stuff like that. But it is really nice to be able to like have it as a constraint on the filter now, and it's really easy to identify. So that's nice, and it really helps keep the database more clean.
Yeah, great. And one question came in regarding that is, how long should we wait to create rules after we do the initial implementation?
I honestly would create rules pretty like quickly. I did as soon as I stood it up, just so I can see what was coming through. And I think adding to a list really helps. So creating just a smart campaign that's adding people to a list based on what score they're getting, and kind of reviewing that. But I wouldn't wait too long. I think setting it up right away would be helpful.
And a few more questions we have around bots. Some of it we've kind of touched on, but I want to make sure, in case you're the person that asked this question, I want to make sure your question gets heard and we talk about it. But how does the bot tracking work? There are two options. Admin, can you explain what each one does? And what are the rules you've set up to exclude bots? What does that look like in the flow step? Are you removing them from the flow step altogether? We're adding them to a list review. What does your review process look like?
I can take that one as well. So there's two different types of bot identification that Marketo has kind of rolled out natively, but the first one is match with the IAB list, which is International Advertising Bureau, and this is a predefined list of bots that Marketo uses. So if they see any traffic coming in from certain like IPs or user agents that match to this bot list, they will identify that. And there's two different options in Marketo. You can log the bot activity in the activity log or filter it out altogether. And then the additional bot tracking that they have is proximity pattern matching, which is more about having the same person by lead ID in an email, clicking on multiple links within that email in under a second. So it's more about, like, say, for example, you have some sort of tool that is doing like link checking and clicking every single link inside of that email. But one nice feature of this is if you have somebody who is automatically clicking all the links in the email, for example, via like a tool or a service, and then the actual human comes back and clicks the link, it does identify that the IP is different. So it does count that click if a real human does come back and count the link. So there is two available ways to track it. You can filter out the activity altogether from the activity log, or you can just like track the activity or log it in your activity log. So I personally just log it right now. I don't filter it out. I find it nice to be able to kind of review what it's tracking, what it's bringing in, what it is identifying as a bot, what it's not, and just kind of taking a look. So this is also an additional constraint you can add on, like clicks link on the filter as a constraint, so you can see if it's coming from a bot, if it's coming from proximity pattern or anything like that, and kind of filtering it out. But I don't know if anyone wants to add more to that.
uh, like like there are two schools of thoughts around here. There are some people who prefer filtering out. There are some people who do not prefer filtering out, but I personally would like to include the bot activities in the activity log as well, and build a set of workflows so that I can exclude people using the constants that you just said, just so that I know how, what traffic I'm getting in the instance and stuff like that, just to analyze stuff over the time. So yeah.
I do something similar to Darshil there, where in the past, I've created a series of smart lists that look for
Hmm.
like number of clicks within a set period of time related to delivery and things like that. And I've taken that information and marked those people as a suspected bot. Like I've flagged them, put them in a smart list, reviewed them, and then I'll use that as a suppression in some of my scoring model activity, because I know that that's not real. And so I'll block them from anything related to email opens, clicks, and things like that. I also changed a lot of things related to the scoring model. So people engaging with a CTA for us used to be like, a couple of points here or there, whatever the case may be. Instead of having it based on score or based on email clicks, everything is based on the actual landing page itself rendering
Hmm.
after the fact. Um,
Yeah.
and then with that, anytime if we were sending, for example, somebody directly to a PDF, right? We were ungating it, sending them right to a PDF. We were still putting that on a landing page or putting some sort of an interstitial page that they would go through. It would fire that interstitial page in Munchkin before going straight to the PDF, so that we at least had something that was rendering that page that we could look at as a true CTA engagement instead of just a click.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we
And
have
with the
one
bot
more
filtering,
question.
yeah, like
Oh,
I just
go ahead,
wanted to
Brooke.
add that with ball filtering and the captcha being added, like we are really taking against the bot. So so yeah, like in future we'll be having a lot less bot submissions and stuff like that. At least we'll be able to filter out people, quarantine them so that they do not run through our operational programs and uh, you know uh, overwhelm our instance.
We have one more question that came in around that is what threshold for return score is everyone using to determine what counts as a bot? 0.6, 0.7?
Uh, that depends. So, like personally, anything above zero point 0.5 to me is a genuine form submission. But there are people who are like who want to be a little conservative and they set the score to a zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7 something. I think that would be a bit overkill, but you can definitely try. Like this is nothing but a smart list constant that you can set. So you can definitely try setting zero point 0.5, zero point 0.6, zero point 0.7 and see if you're getting any bot submissions. Like maybe go through the smart people who qualify through the smart list and see if you see any of the like any of the suspicious people around there. If you see a lot of suspicious submissions in there, then probably you would wanna increase the threshold to probably zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7. But I think anything above zero point 0.5 is something which Google says that you can considerably accept that as a genuine form submission.
Okay. Next, we're going to move on to nurture. Can you share examples of engagement programs used for full lead acquisition journey? Or what circumstances would you separate default programs at each step of the journey?
I can start off with few of the use cases that I have worked on with respect to building out the engagement program or specifically the nurture flow. So when I start off, like when I get the requirements, I first understand what is the cadence of the nurture email send looks like. If there is a uniform cadence, then I would definitely prefer using the engagement program over setting like creating a set of default programs and then managing the send myself or like using the send email campaign. So that is one thing that I like, one of the things that I look forward on choosing which of the two options to go through, either engagement program or the default program. And once that is set up, so for example, if I'm going or building out the nurture using engagement program, I then see what are the what are the different criterias or what are the different divisions that we would want to isolate or differentiate our content and the people. So for example, if we are planning to do a full acquisition lead journey or lead engagement program, then I would have something like early stage content, mid stage or mid funnel content, and the late stage funnel content. So based on the content, like based on the propensity of people, based on where they are at the lead journey, I will add them to the separate streams, different streams of content. And then I would also have campaigns built around them to transition people to the different streams when they change their stage or like when they are ready to accept or receive the later stage content. So as like I do this to ensure that the people are receiving the right content at right time. They are not receiving too many early stage content, even if they are say like qualified, engaged, or say they are near to becoming an MQL. So this is something that I had implemented, and this is something that I would also suggest doing so.
Okay. All right, and next we've got a few questions on scoring. One is just asking for tips on building a lead scoring model. And another is, I would like to learn about lead scoring. I know the basics, but any tips or tricks?
Yeah, I can take that one. And Brooke, please chime in. I feel like you have a lot of great experience with this as well. But first thing that comes to mind is aligning with sales and marketing. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's very important to understand what a sales ready lead is and what sales defines as like a qualified lead. So aligning with them on that. is very important, and then activating on that with your programs within lead score. Also, I find that other than demographic data like job title, industry, behavior data is very important. So really nailing out those high value pages on your website, the important links in your email, stuff of that nature is really important to identify and score against. And then also when it comes down to like event scoring as well, make sure you're setting up your programs properly as event programs to automate a lot of that scoring that happens behind the scenes.
Does anybody else want to provide some insight around tips and tricks in scoring? I know something everybody's near and dear to.
Yeah, I think one thing I was going to add is, as you're building out your scoring model, certainly the behavior and demographic, but also take into consideration negative scoring or score deprecation. So if you've had, spikes of activity and then no activity for 90 days, you may want to decrease scoring. Things that are indicative of people taking a step back, so unsubscribing, that type of thing, or negative scoring against job titles, not targeted industry, not countries that you sell into, things like that. Heather nailed it with start with sales and marketing alignment, first of all. But continue with that in a feedback loop, because you're going to, when you put your scoring model in, you'll still be sending things over to your sales team and they're going to be like, hey, this is not really an MQL. This is a crap lead. Get rid of it, disqualify it, whatever the case may be. But if there's not a reason as to why it's disqualified and you don't have a feedback loop with your sales team, you're not going to be able to make changes to improve that. So I always emphasize with my teams, hey, this is not set in stone. We are going to continue to revisit this on a regular basis. And so we have it as a part of our regular meetings with the sales team is like, hey, great. Here are all of the leads that you've disqualified in the last, week, 2 weeks, month, whatever your cadence is for meeting. Let's talk about why these were disqualified. If you don't have a field that you're disqualifying them or they're not filling it in, something like that. But why are these being disqualified? How can we use this to modify our scoring model to make this better? And I just revisit that on a regular basis because channels change, things that are important to your teams change. You're going to have one-offs. And then make it easy for yourself. Operationalize your scoring model in a single program and tokenize it. Because that way, if you do need to make changes to something when you're doing these feedback loops, you know exactly where to go. And it's not, hey, every single content program has a different scoring model or a different scoring value. So that if I need to change something, shoot, now I have 52 programs I need to go through and figure out and hope I didn't miss anything. So make your lives a little bit easier on yourselves and tokenize that.
Yeah, and with the negative scoring you mentioned earlier, something we watch for when we do negative scoring that might impact others as well is we also make sure we don't make the score go negative. So for us, we will decrease the score, but you have to be careful that you don't decrease it below 0. For other people, maybe you need it to go below 0, but for us, we make sure in those scoring campaigns we don't go too far. Anyone else want to share anything around scoring or what you're doing? We have one more scoring question that came in. Any tips you need to revamp your person scoring model? Seems like our current model is outdated and not being used.
Yeah, I would definitely add on to what both Brooke and Heather said, but definitely start with sales and marketing alignment. Like I would definitely be meeting with your sales team and kind of reviewing what was working and what isn't working with your current model and making adjustments based on that. So as long as there's mutual agreement, there is a lot more success with the scoring model and the leads that are coming through. Yeah.
Yeah,
That I
I
would
think
say too. Go ahead,
alignment
Darshil.
between marketing and sales is one of the most important factor while building out the scoring model. And if you think your scoring model is outdated, then I would say setting up meetings with your sales team, if you're the marketing team, to identify like what we used to do and like how that has changed, till now, like what different we are doing today, so as to make, like, what are the things that we should be updating to the existing scoring model, so as to make it more relevant to how we are doing our marketing activities, how we are handing off leads to the sales, how sales team is, like, what are the factors which sales team has found out to be important for the QL leads. So maybe provide a higher score to those interactions than the rest. So that is probably I would recommend. And apart from that, like apart from the strategy perspective, I also have one implementation related tip. So for example, if you are implementing a net new, or for example, if you are implementing demographic scoring into existing instance where you have people already having values in that particular fields, then before launching all of those trigger campaigns, I would recommend cloning those trigger campaigns and as create those as a batch campaign, and before launching ensure that you are scoring people up to that particular score if they have the demographic field already populated, so as to normalize your existing audience that have the fields or values in the existing fields uh, are also get scored, so they are also not left out from your newer process.
And to piggyback to that question about having a current model that's outdated and not being used, Kate has asked, should the model be paused or go ahead and make adjustments on the fly?
I can take that one. I would probably pause the model just because it is not being used. And I would really wait to get that sales and marketing alignment. When you are rolling out your new model, I would definitely make sure there is like change management and all the sales reps know like the new model is being launched. These are the things we're scoring on, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if it's not being used, you may need to start over and reset everything back to zero and start fresh. Just kind of depends. Another thing that came in, is there a benefit to having a maximum behavior score?
So for us, we do this in the sense that it helps with our prioritization of lead scoring. As I mentioned, we kind of have, the ABX score coming from 6sense, and we have our person scores coming from Marketo. We have a requirement that a certain amount of our score value come from a demographic score, so that 100 points in behavior score can't compensate for somebody being an intern and having no buying authority, or not being a demographic fit or firmographic fit for our company. So if there's not at least a bare minimum threshold there for profile fit, it doesn't matter what their behavior score is. They won't MQL. There are some considerations there around job title based on company size. So if you think of the fact that a manager at a large enterprise company may have different buying authority than a manager at a startup, we might have different variables in there to tweak and tailor it. And that's where having, different values in your scoring model based on those can be tweaked and adjusted. But we always keep a minimum just so that it's not, a student doing research MQLing.
Great. And Nikki's asked a question off topic, which Nikki is great because I was going to mention as we're getting towards the end of the hour that if anybody has a question we either didn't get to yet or that all this conversation has made you think of, please definitely put it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer. But Nikki has asked, is anyone using the program member custom field feature? And if so, can you provide some use cases?
We are for UTMs. I don't know if anyone else is.
Same.
Great. I will be excited for the program member custom fields to integrate to the Salesforce campaign member custom fields. That'd be nice.
Yeah, we do that with a webhook currently.
Mm-hmm. And Maddie says that she used it for course registration names. Yeah.
Oh, and Nikki, you're in the beta. Nice.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions we haven't gotten to? Definitely feel free to put them in the chat, but I'll keep going through the list of questions that we received from registration. So our next question is, there are a couple questions that are kind of similar. It's why should I archive my old campaigns and programs? And what are the best practices for archiving programs and deactivating smart campaigns?
I can take that question. So, I mean, when it comes to archiving stuff, when it comes to filing off things, people are not very serious about it, especially the new users. I definitely am against it. So you should definitely consider archiving your programs, the obsolete campaigns, the obsolete assets. There are a lot of benefits of following the proper archival process. So when it comes to like if you are archiving your campaigns, if you're archiving your older assets, uh, those assets and campaigns are not visible in the search functionality of Marketo. So, I mean, those folders and like those assets would be visible under a collapsed folder of the collapsed archive folder. So you like this helps you ensure that you are seeing only the active programs, only the active campaigns and stuff like that. But apart from that, all the archived assets and the non-archived assets, of course, are also visible through the global search. So anytime if you want to search, like search of your archived assets, you can do a global search in Marketo. And apart from that, there's an easy way to filter off the metrics coming in from the archived assets into the Marketo analytics reports. So in like within just of it in the setup, you can just mention that if you want to include the metrics from the archived assets or not. So that is something that you can also consider as one of the benefits of archiving assets, that you can discount the metrics coming in from the archived of assets, which are way too older for you to consider, the data for your future decisions and measuring performance. And apart from that, I think as a practice of general cleanliness, maintaining hygiene in the instance, we should be archiving of assets. And one thing, like there is one caveat around archiving stuff, is that like if you're archiving your smart campaigns, if you're archiving your landing page, then I would definitely consider deactivating those, because for example, if there is an active trigger campaign, you are archiving that particular trigger campaign won't get deactivated on its own as soon as you archive. So if there are people qualifying for that campaign even after you archive, there people will be flowing through that campaign. So I would definitely consider turning off. I would definitely going through all the assets before you actually put them into the archive folder.
Great. And there's a question I missed earlier in the chat. It says, I am curious if anyone is using Ringlead web submission functionality to keep the size of their database smaller and keep outbound contacts only in Salesforce until the matching inbound lead comes in. And I'm guessing that might be a no. But is anybody doing that? No?
No, but it does sound very interesting, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So no other new questions in chat. So the next question we have on here is, what is your best Marketo moment? But I want to change that question a little bit and say, what is your best or worst Marketo moment? We've all had that worst moment. So if you guys want to share, we can all learn from each other that way.
I can probably start with my best Marketo moment. So the best Marketo moment for me was when I achieved the Marketo Certified Solution Architect exam. So I put in a lot of effort in building out the presentation format. So back in I cleared the exam last year. So back that time there was a presentation driven process where we had to provide, like the consultant had to provide a full like a presentation along with the supporting documentation of the Marketo project that they led from end to end. So I put in like 2 or 3 months of effort along with all of my colleagues. So I'm very thankful to them, especially you as well, Jenny. So yeah, thank you for helping me with my presentation and stuff. So yeah, that was my best Marketo moment, I would say. Worst Marketo moment was that when I was starting off with the Marketo, like in my career, I was tasked to build out a webhook for one of the integration. And back then I didn't know that webhook are actually the, like, once you launch a webhook, the webhook are actually cached, like Marketo caches the webhook definition. So if you make any updates to the webhook once it is implemented and being used in the flow step, Marketo is gonna reference the older version of the webhook. So I learned that by hard way, but definitely I am more considerate now. So if I have to make any updates, I definitely clone out the webhook and make updates to the fresh new webhook, so as to ensure that the older cached version of the webhook definition does not run. So that was one of the like worst Marketo moment. But I am happy that I learned a lesson from my life, and I have published like a LinkedIn post and also added an article on community about that, so that people do not have to learn hard way, which I did.
I love it. That's a great example. Nikki's excited about that. Thanks, Darshil. Does anybody else want to share your best and or worst Marketo moment?
I mean, my worst was when I was a new Marketo user. It probably should have scared me off for life. I was learning smart campaigns and multiple triggers paired with filter constraints, and then how that impacted sending alerts. And so on the very first one that we did within our company, we thought we had this all great, right? It was going to trigger only when people did X, Y, and Z. And we had a trigger where we should have had a filter. And so instead of sending a handful of alerts when a high value activity occurred, when we sent out 300,000 emails, we had alerts coming back off of multiple triggers. Those alerts were getting sent to distribution lists, which each distro contained more than 50 people. Those distros were director all the way up to the company president. And what we learned the really hard way is that when you send over 2.5 million emails to your internal Outlook provider in the span of a couple of minutes, you will shut down your Outlook for your whole company for about a day and a half. And when you work for a company that is in e-commerce sales that relies on email for sales and business, it doesn't look pretty. And
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those where working with Marketo of like, how do we stop this? And our IT team going, what have you done? We just like, we were ready to crawl under our desks and disappear. And we probably at that point should have just walked away. But fixed it, learned a ton from it, and have never made that mistake again. So very, very careful with alerts and BCCs now. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
then I think
Robin
to
shared
top
a
that
story.
off, oh, go ahead.
Robin shared a story in chat that she had problems with a random sample and sent some people the same email again and again. Thanks for sharing, Robin.
Yeah, I think I was going to add my best Marketo moment was getting the current instance that I have up and running, just because of all of the uniqueness and complexity that we have with a multi CRM environment and structuring that with the workspaces and partitions that we have to keep people in the appropriate databases. Um, it was one of those things that, conceptually we're like, okay, this sounds really great. Will it actually work? I don't know, but we're going to try it and figure it out. And when it actually did work, it was kind of one of those like feeling like you're on top of the world because everything that was in your brain actually turned out to be like a thing. Obviously, we, tweaked and made changes along the way, but seeing something come to life like that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Megan or Heather, do either of you want to share your best or worst Marketo moment?
I think, well, both Heather and I have a custom CRM integration, so I would say that's probably both our best and worst, because we have to have a lot of different customizations that are not supported by Marketo natively. But Heather, I'll let you add on to that.
So we actually figured out how to make marketing activities work within our custom CRM, which was, I think, a very proud moment for me and the entire team. That was exciting to see happening. I'm used to having Salesforce, so exactly what you said, Brooke, seeing it come, to life out of your head is very exciting. Yeah.
Great. Well, we have 1 minute left. I don't really see any questions that I think we can answer in 1 minute. So if anybody, we did have a quick question came in from Maddie. What CRM do you use since you don't use Salesforce?
Sugar.
In my previous role, we used SAP CRM.
And I've got an instance of Zoho hooked up.
Maddie uses NetSuite, so she was curious. Okay, great. Well, I think we're at about time. The recording and slides are going to get sent out to everybody after the presentation. Thanks so much for sending in questions and attending today. We appreciate it and love being able to share with all of you guys.